Cleopatra, the extraordinary woman who single-handedly forced the birth of the mighty Roman Empire. In our previous episode, we spoke about the man who masterfully transformed chaos into an empire. Today, we take a bold leap through time and turn back just a little bit, because long before the order of the empire, there existed a legendary queen. Her name was Cleopatra. Cleopatra wasn't merely the last queen of Egypt just because she lost a tragic war. She was the last because the ancient world in which she lived was changing forever, and she was born exactly at the moment when the old world was dying, while the new one was preparing to be born. She wasn't just a woman caught between two powerful and ambitious men. That is the simple, easily digestible legend. In reality, Cleopatra was an extremely sharp political leader, a master polyglot fluent in 9 languages, who understood that power was no longer won only by the sword. It was won through strategic alliances, through image, through the careful control of resources, and through powerful symbols. Cleopatra was born into a world where Egypt was no longer the vast empire it had once been. The golden glory of the pharaohs belonged to the distant past. The pyramids were but fading memories. The gods were still deeply worshipped, but real power had shifted elsewhere. Now, Egypt had become a vital strategic piece in a much larger global game, the game of Rome. The Ptolemaic dynasty to which Cleopatra belonged was of Greek origin. They were heirs to a kingdom built after the monumental conquests of Alexander the Great. They weren't truly Egyptians, but they ruled over Egypt nonetheless. Cleopatra understood something that the other members of her royal family never quite grasped. If she truly wanted to survive, she had to become much more than just a foreign queen on an ancient throne. She mastered the Egyptian language, adopted their sacred rituals, understood their secret symbols, and presented herself as pharaoh, as the living incarnation of the goddess Isis. For the people, that was what truly mattered. Once upon the throne, Cleopatra did not rule entirely alone. She was forced to share her power with her younger brother, a child easily manipulated by courtiers, generals, and external interests. It was a throne meant for one, yet crowded by two, where family ties were often severed by cold ambition. The Egyptian court was a dark nest of betrayals, intricate intrigues, hidden poisons, and masked assassinations. It doesn't take long before Cleopatra is ruthlessly driven out of Alexandria. Power is snatched from her grasp. Everything seemed utterly lost. But exactly then, Rome appears on the horizon. When Julius Caesar arrives in Egypt, he doesn't come as a savior. He comes as a cold arbiter, as a man seeking stability. Egypt was the essential granary of Rome. Without Egyptian grain, Rome would starve. And a starving Rome was a very dangerous Rome indeed. Cleopatra instantly understands the stakes involved. Legend says she sneaks into Caesar's palace, hidden inside a carpet. The exact truth no longer matters. What matters is the final result. Caesar didn't see a desperate queen. He saw an intelligent ally, a leader capable of stabilizing Egypt and remaining loyal to him. Cleopatra didn't conquer him through mere beauty. She conquered him through her brilliant mind. The alliance between Cleopatra and Caesar completely changes the global balance of power. Cleopatra returns to her throne, her enemies are eliminated, and order is restored. But their relationship goes much further. Cleopatra offers Caesar something extremely dangerous, an heir, a child with Roman blood and Egyptian royal blood. For Rome, this was simply inconceivable, a future where the center of power was no longer exclusively in Rome. Cleopatra arrives in Rome not as a lowly prisoner, but as a queen. She lives in a luxurious villa. She participates in political life. She is visible. She is present. For some, she was fascinating. For others, she was a direct threat, the symbol of the decadent Orient, of foreign influence, of a world that seemed to invade traditional Roman values. When Caesar is brutally assassinated, Cleopatra immediately understands the harsh truth. Rome will never be a safe place for her. She returns to Egypt and waits. After Caesar's tragic death, the Roman world explodes. Civil war begins once again. In this chaos, another powerful man emerges, Marcus Antonius. Antony was a soldier, charismatic, impulsive, a man of emotion, not of cold calculation. Cleopatra calls him to Alexandria, and once again, history changes its direction. The meeting between Cleopatra and Antony was not just a romantic story. It was a cold, calculated political alliance. Antony had the armies. Cleopatra had the gold. Antony had the soldiers. Cleopatra had the fleets. Antony had the fame. Cleopatra had the legitimacy. Together, they tried to create a viable alternative to Rome. Another center of the world, Alexandria, not Rome. Rome didn't fear Cleopatra only for who she was, but for what she could become. For the first time since Alexander the Great, a power from outside Italy seemed capable of directly influencing the future of the Roman world. Not through conquest, not through invasion, but through total economic control. Egypt was much more than an exotic kingdom. It was the source of food, the source of gold, the source of stability. A single blockage of the transports from Alexandria, and Rome would fall into famine. Cleopatra knew this well. She knew she didn't need to defeat Rome on the battlefield. She only needed to exist as a viable alternative. A queen who didn't ask for Rome's permission. A woman who didn't submit to the Senate. A leader who demonstrated that the world no longer revolved only around Italy. For Rome, this was unacceptable. Not simply because she was a woman, but because she was highly efficient. Rome didn't fear Cleopatra as a person. It feared what she represented. Egypt wasn't just wealthy, it was vital. Its grain fed millions, its gold financed wars. The fleet controlled the eastern Mediterranean, and all these resources were under the control of a single woman, Cleopatra. In the west, another man was rising in silence, Octavian. Cold, calculating, patient. Octavian doesn't attack directly. He does something much more dangerous. He controls the narrative. For Rome, Cleopatra becomes the perfect enemy, the foreign queen, the decadent Orient, the moral threat. The propaganda works flawlessly. The Senate declares war not on Antony, but on Cleopatra herself. The decisive battle takes place at sea, at Actium. The fleets of Antony and Cleopatra are defeated, not because they were weaker, but because Antony hesitates. Cleopatra retreats. Antony follows her. In that very moment, everything is lost. In Egypt, defeated and abandoned, the two understand the grim reality. Rome will not forgive. Octavian will not negotiate. Antony commits suicide. Cleopatra remains alone. Cleopatra tries one last desperate move. She wants to negotiate with Octavian, but she quickly realizes she will not be a queen. She will be a trophy, carried in a humiliating parade through the streets of Rome. She refuses. Legend says she takes her own life with the help of a venomous snake. The truth is less important than the symbol. Cleopatra chose death over humiliation. Her final act was not a surrender, but a political masterstroke, ensuring she would never be a Roman prisoner. With her death, Egypt becomes a Roman province. The last great kingdom of the Hellenistic world disappears. Octavian remains the sole master of the Roman world. The empire is born. Cleopatra was not a victim. She was a brilliant player. She lost because the world had entered a new era, an era of structures, not of personalities. Cleopatra was the end of an era, but history does not stop at Rome, because far from the golden deserts of Egypt, thousands of miles away, another world was simmering. Not senators, not queens, not Roman empires, but samurai. The next man will not lead through seduction. He will not negotiate with the Senate. He will not speak Latin. He will unify a country through fire, sword, and fear. His name was Oda Nobunaga. If you enjoyed this episode, a like helps more than you think. And if you want to continue our journey through the people who changed history, subscribe. because the next chapter takes us to a completely different world.